Hello retro fans! Welcome to another episode of C64 Customs, and this time it's not about the C64. I hope you're not going to jump off the boat immediately, but I think if you are a kind of frequent visitor to my channel, you know that every now and then I talk about the NES as well and do some things with the NES. And in the past, especially on Fridays, I tended to have this Famicom Friday, where I was real time, streaming gaming on the Famicom. And since I haven't done this for a very long time now, but I really want to come back to NES/slash Famicom gaming, every now and then I decided to make at least one episode where I talk about 3 things I have received for the NES, and this has been this has been done over about a few months. So and I just kept them in my shelf without paying that much attention to this. But anyway, then it's about the NES gaming tonight, and let's start with it right now. So, and I'm just a little bit confused that I have absolutely no sound tonight. That's really strange. So let me just maybe hook up a headphone or something like this, or well, let's go on like this. OBS still giving me grief with a couple of things, but it's getting better step by step, at least. So then let's move directly to my desk so that we can see what I'm talking about. And the first thing you may recognize is that this is indeed an NES, but it is an NES without housing or without a case, because this is my NTSC NES, and I'm kind of in the middle of doing some refurbishing and doing some modding of this one. But for tonight's session, I decided to go like this. You may notice from my C64 videos quite often I just have a bare board on the desk, and it has to work like this. So I have connected 2 controllers. The reason for this will be revealed later in the video, and this is just this common standard wiring and video output, audio output, controllers, power out, nothing so specific at all. And the very first thing is something I have received from eBay, and I was really interested in to get this as a real cartridge, because I have seen a video about this and I have played this on the emulator for a couple of moments, and then I decided this is something I really want to play on the real NES, and this is Star Voyager. It is not very well known. It's a kind of I would call this a hidden gem. So, and it is about, well, space and a spaceship and a couple of things you have to do in space with spaceships, and this is hopefully running quite well on the NTSC NES, because this is really not released as PAL in Europe, I think. So it was a little bit tricky to get this, and I think I got it from Belgium. Sorry, can't remember. Anyway, let's see if it is working and how it is going to be played. So, power. Fingers crossed, it's going to start. It looks indeed a bit strange, so I assume we have a couple of issues with the connector. So let's try to fix this quite quickly. This is basically quite common for older cartridges, and one trick that works quite good most of the time is using this WD-40 contact spray. It's a mix of cleaning and anti-corrosion, so I just give it a small amount to the connector, and then I immediately plug this into the NES a few times. And next attempt, fingers crossed. Let's hope that this has fixed the issue. Takes a while. Oh, it's even worse. Okay, so some cartridges are a little bit trickier than others. So could be that the connector on the NES itself is a little bit dirty. So I'm going to remove this. Well, yeah, the contacts are not so nice at all. And if you look a little bit closer at this one, just give me a chance to show you this. We can see that these little springy things, contacts here, are not very well aligned. So this is a very common issue with older connectors. But well, let's see if we can use the same trick for the connector as well. So just need something to put behind because it's going to spray through the contacts. Now, there are a lot of tips and tricks on YouTube, on the internet, how to refurbish those connectors. But my experience is that you can get 2 of those replacement connectors for about 7-8 euros or something like this, and going simply for a replacement is often working much better than spending a lot of time trying to bring an old connector back to life. I have tested this, so I really spent about a day disassembling it and cleaning and cooking and fixing all those little contacts, and it was really a lot of effort. But as you can see, contact spray and putting everything together may do the trick as well. And now we are straight into Star Voyager, and the story is that the galaxy, let's call it like this, has been invaded by, well, invaders. So not basically all of them are aliens, but well, if they are not from Earth, then they are aliens. Well, no racism. The galaxy is invaded by someone. So, and your mission, well, let's guess it, is to stay up against those invaders and free your sector, or whatever we want to call this area of the galaxy, from these invaders. And you got a spaceship, and you got some star bases where you can replenish your, well, depleted energy cells and something like this, and get some repairs and everything like this. And then you have to, well, go into the fight against those invaders. And the story is by far not very creative, I have to admit, so it's really the standard story for space games. And beside this, I have to admit that the game content itself, or the how the game is played, is not that much deeper either, so it's really basically straightforward. But this game is really tremendously hard to play, so I really have to admit I never made that much progress in this game. But I really like having this this nice intro here and having this star field. Oh, yeah. So he's obviously wearing a space suit, otherwise it would be hard to wink out of the cockpit. And let's see if he's going to do something else. Oh, he can transform his ship. That's very nice. Cool. Okay, I never made it that far, so mostly I jumped straight into the game. And well, let's have a look how it is played. And as I said, it is really hard, so don't expect that I'm going to ace through all those things here right now. So here we have a kind of intro sequence where the guy jumps, or the girl, the woman, whoever, the person, right into the ship. And since we left the space station is actually nearby. And what we can't see so good right now is at the border. Well, let me move this a little bit to the side. We can have a better look at this. So we have actually this energy bar on the right hand side, and we have a small amount or a small display at the top of the screen at the right hand side, and this is basically our amount of energy cells, and each energy cell contains this amount of energy shown at the right hand side. So, and if we are flying through space, we actually consume energy by our life support systems and by flying and shields and shooting. And you really have to pay attention to your energy level. So now we are close to the space station, but I think we can't dock because we just left this. But we can approach this, and then usually it will turn in our direction, which is quite interesting that the space station turns and not that we are aligning ourselves to the space station. And then usually it takes a couple of seconds, and then we are synced to the rotation of the station, and then there is some sort of a docking sequence. But I think we are just doing a flyby because now we turned the ship around, and now we have now we are connected to the space station, and now our energy level is renewed. So basically that's what we can do here. We can fly around. The star field is accelerating, and then we can change the direction. And what I really love is this 3D star field and how it changes the movement of those stars or debris or whatever it is flying. And the controls are quite simple. So with the button B we have some sort of accelerating function, and if we press the button shortly, then we kind of brake. And button A is, well, guess, firing. And then we have select. And this brings up the spaceship status on the right hand side and some sort of a map on the left hand top corner. And as we can see, those flashing axes, or whatever we want to call this, these are actually the enemies, or well, the invaders. And our task is to fight against them. And those green balls, these are planets. And it's really worth to visit the planets because they provide upgrades to your ship. And you have no idea which planet is providing something, and some planets are providing nothing at all. So you have to sort of try it. And those little things we have seen already is basically an indicator that there's a space station. And then we have this 4 dots, which is a symbol for a asteroid field, which is basically not recommended to fly there because this is very stressful for the ship and you can't get anything there as well. And here, this little sign is a black hole, which is not very useful to fly to the sector as well, because then you get dragged into this black hole and then it's basically game over. So let's have a look how this is going to be played. Let's fly to this planet. So you place this yellowish dot over the target sector you want to go, and then you simply jump out of this map, and then you can see at the bottom of the screen we have some kind of coordinate system or whatever, and the number 2, so we know we have to perform 2 jumps because we are going to use subspace for faster traveling. And by doing so, or well, by pressing button B until we reach the red sector, and then we have to wait until 2 red dots appear at the left hand top corner, we perform basically a jump over the required distance. Now we're leaving subspace and then we get an indicator planet nearby. Since this planet is somewhere in the sector and we have no idea where we ended up, we have to look for the planet, and what I'm using basically is that I remember the direction we are flying into, so this is basically C2, and then I turn around, and if nothing happens, then I turn the ship by 2 steps and then perform the same, and most of the time can be found right here. So let's fly to this planet, and it's very interesting because if we are too fast, then we kind of bounce off the atmosphere. So in order to land on the planet, we have to slow down a little bit. And they come in different colors, so it's really interesting that we have different planets here in this game. I have to aim a little bit. Oops. And now the ship is turning because we land on this planet tail forward, I think. Now we're entering the atmosphere, and basically we will see some mountains and some buildings, and every now and then somebody appears and then offers some upgrades, but it looks like today nobody's here, and then you simply have to wait for a couple of seconds and then your spaceship will automatically launch into space again. And we can perform this for every planet in this system, or in this galaxy, or whatever we want to call this part we are moving in. And basically this is done automatically, and now we are back to space, and now we can have a look at the map, and we have a space station nearby, so it's really good plan. Maybe we fly to this planet and then we're going to visit the next space station, and then we go and try to jump into battle, which will probably going to be the end of the game. I heavily guess so. The tricky thing is that those invaders are coming with some sort of a mothership, and this mothership kind of spits out little ships, and you can shoot down those little ships as long as you want. They will respawn all the time until you destroy this mothership, and if you're not doing so, then it makes no sense to leave the sector, or well, it makes sense if you are low in energy, then basically you have to leave the sector and look for a space station. But if you come back, they will stay there, and they will be there again, and you make no progress in the game at all. So I haven't paid attention to the screen, so we're actually close to a space station. but we want to go to the planet. So the reason for this is that everything moves in this game. So if you wait too long or if you fly too long, you end up in a different position than you have aimed for, and therefore you have to perform small corrections. And hopefully we are now in the sector with the planet. Yes, planet nearby. So same procedure, searching for the planet. Oh, it's hidden. There it is. Okay. So let's approach it. Slow down a little bit. Now getting closer, and this time we have a bluish planet. Let's hope that this has to offer something interesting. So don't expect tremendously different graphics. It's the very same, just different color. But well, at least. But there's nobody offering something to us. I never figured out if it makes sense to press some buttons or not, or if this really is an automatic sequence. For me it feels the very same all of the time. So, no luck with this one. Then let's have a look at the map. And especially our energy status. So we have 5 energy cells, and this is kind of not very recommendable to start the battle with so low energy. With such a low level of energy. Sounds a little bit better. So let's jump quickly to the space station. Refill, and then let's see if we can at least survive one battle. Same procedure, looking for the space station. There it is. Going down a little bit. And hope that the docking will work. Yep, looks good. So one thing I have to complain about is that even if we are kind of standing still, whatever this is in the room, in space, then the star field keeps moving, and therefore you have, well, no real feedback about your own speed. I mean, it is accelerating if you are faster, but it looks like you're moving all of the time. And interestingly, if you just turn around, then the stars are approaching us as well. So even maybe we have a permanent momentum forward or something like this, or it is basically just a graphic interpretation. I don't know. But anyway, it looks cool. So now it's about time to do some battle. So let's fly to the closest formation we can find. And here you can see the twist. So it requires energy to go to a place. It requires energy to fight. And it requires energy to go back to a space station. And everything you have to keep in mind. And on the one side, it makes sense to approach the enemies quite quickly. but then you have a lot of a long distance to bridge, so to say. But as soon as they have, I think they destroy something, and as soon as they have destroyed all planets or all space stations, then the game is basically over. So, and here it is, the battle goes on, and so as you can see, we're getting a lot of damage already, and our energy cells are depleting like nothing, and basically it's about time to fly away. Otherwise we are not going to survive this any longer. I think, wow, jumped too far. So this is basically very critical. If we jump to a sector without a space station, then... Oh no, we jump to the sector with more enemies. So yeah, as I said, that's probably going to be game over. Let's check the screen. So we have a lot of things that are damaged. And we jumped exactly to a sector with more enemies. And I think there's basically no chance to reach the space station without subspace travel. So even if we try to accelerate a little bit, but as you can see, the energy is dropping down drastically, and there's basically no chance to get closer to the space station now. And this is what I said, this makes this game so extremely hard to play. You really have to pay attention to a lot of things, you really have to kind of memorize the space map, that you have an idea in which direction you are flying. And if you are in the middle of the battle, you really have to find the right point to jump out of the battle, otherwise you will have no chance to go to a space station. And I think we can go on here forever. We're never going to reach this. And there is no hidden backup energy or something like this. It's just what we have, and as soon as they hit us, it is really not SOS received. Received? Our SOS or somebody else? But let's see. It is actually not visible, but I think they, as soon as they have reached this blue dot in the left hand upper corner, then the game is basically over. And we were not able to defend the main base, or whatever we want to call this. But actually we have no possibility left to engage in the battle, so... And it looks like we're not getting closer to space station. And I think we're not going to fool the system. Nope, there's no chance to... Game over, energy depleted. Well, yeah, as I said, it is really hard to play, but well, that's the way it is. I think there are people on the internet who manage to play the game, and basically I really like the concept, I really like the graphics, and basically I just have to figure out how to play the game more successfully. But anyway, that's for Star Voyager. Let's move on to the next one. So, and the next one is Corvette ZR1 Challenge. As you can see, I got this as a boxed version, because I really like to get some of the games I like as boxed version and not just a simple cartridge like this. And the interesting thing for most of those boxed versions is that we get some sort of a manual, and that most of the time the game is in very good condition. And here we have the manual, which is a little bit beaten up, but well. And we got a cartridge, and yep, let's see if this is going to work on the NTSC NES. But before we do so, let's have a look into the manual. And we have a short description of the card itself. We have a map, and we see that we start somewhere in Boston and we want to finish in Los Angeles. And we have a couple of stages, and we have a couple of different opponents or characters we can use by ourselves. And then we have a short description of the stage ahead. And the interesting thing is that the farther we approach into the game, the more difficult those stages and opponents become, well, obviously. And interestingly is that on longer stages we have to pick up fill or gas or whatever we want to call it. And for this we have to slow down. And it took me quite a while to figure out how this is going to work. And one tricky point is that we have manual gear box, and we really have to shift in during acceleration. And this is like in a normal car, you cannot just stay on the throttle and switch gears. You really have to take your foot off the pedal and change to the next gear. And I found this especially with not sure whether this is described somewhere here in the manual, how to shift. Can't find this. So what I was going to say is that I'm having a hard time doing this with the gamepad. To change okay. Press and hold button A to accelerate until the RPM bar is almost full. Then release the accelerator, button A, and tap the control pad up to shift into a higher gear. The RPM will then go down. Repeat this process until you reach 6th gear. To change down, release button A and press the control pad down. Then press button A again. Okay, so much about the technical difficulties. Now let's have a look if this game is going to work on this NES. Switched off, yes. The thing is that, as you may have recognized, there are two red wires here on this NES. And this is actually to bypass this region lock. And well, the game is starting. That's a good sign so far. And I think we got some music as well. Yep. So we have this typical racing style intro. And here we have a short demo play, I think. And what I really like about this game is that we have 3 different perspectives. So we have this startup sequence where we have to avoid bad roads. Then we have this helicopter scene style as soon as we are close to the opponent. And if you make some distance between the opponent, either by falling back or by being faster, then the cameras will switch to the 3rd perspective, which looks a bit ugly, I have to admit. So I think this game isn't working well on NTSC systems, but I'm surprised that we make it that far. And so maybe we have to switch over to the PAL NES to have a look at the gameplay itself. And I will do this quite quickly, so stay tuned. So, and here we are having Corvette ZR1 challenge running on the PAL NES. As you can see, here it runs quite fine without any distortion, something like this, on the screen. And since this is my RGB modded NES, the picture quality is way more better than on the NTSC NES. And one of the major differences is basically that this is running in progressive mode and not in interlaced mode. And therefore, it looks a little bit better. Unfortunately, I'm recording this video with 60 frames per second, and this game is running now at 50 frames. So we will have a couple of hiccups here and then, and due to this difference in frame rate. But I hope you don't mind having this for a short presentation. So let's see if we can, well, I may have to connect the controller to the related NES as well. This is basically improving gameplay quite a lot. I may have switched to a different controller by now, but let's keep things simple and see if we can start the game now. Yes. So, one player. Yep, that's fine. Now we have to go for a not so beauty character, but at least we are sitting in a car, so hopefully not going to see so much about them. And we have a helmet, so everything's fine. So interestingly, top speed 176 miles per hour, video racer 200 miles per hour. So it looks like we are running a tuned version of this Corvette. And here we can see 210 miles Boston to New York. So that's basically something we should accomplish without getting gas. And now we have to accelerate. And then we have to release the button to shift. We can shift in first gear already. And usually it makes sense to avoid those, I think they called potholes, so. But this is a little bit tricky to pay attention to your gear shifting and to the street. So most of the time I kind of ignore this and then trying to catch up on the normal screen. And as you can see, if you are in front, then you have the big screen on top, and if you're behind, you have the small screen at the bottom. And this is actually a little bit tricky to catch up sometimes because the visibility is not as good on the bottom screen as on the top screen. And now I forgot to shift. But it looks like we managed to stay in front. And now let's pay attention to the top screen and see if we can make it without further crashes. And what I've learned so far is that I especially struggle with those motorcycles because they tend to change lanes quite suddenly. And it is interestingly how much effect they have on a car. And we made it to New York, I think. First place. And now we have this nice finish here with all those happy people. And we won leg 1. And then we progress to the next one, and here we have 240 miles, which should work fine quite. And same procedure, starting at this drag strip trying to not lose too much. Getting the gears shifted. So now we're in 6th gear and we haven't lost too much, and now we are on top again, so it means we are in the lead. And since we passed our opponent so quickly, we skipped the helicopter scene. Otherwise, if we do this in-game, then we will have this helicopter perspective. So, I was slow with shifting, therefore we lost our position, but it was a good chance to present this helicopter view. And here we go again, kind of chase mode, and we are in front. The scenery looks a little bit boring at the beginning, but it gets more interesting towards the other stages. Especially if we approach the city, then we can have some sort of a skyline. Went almost smoothly through the gear changes. And this is what I really like, that you have different skylines per stage, you have different sceneries. Come on. That was really not a good timing. Oh, indeed. So we kind of jumped into the finish. That was more luck than skill, I have to admit. And we won again. And now things become a little bit harder, I really have to say. And that's going to be the next opponent. And in the manual I have seen that they have different let's say properties or behaviors or skills, maybe that. So Derek Stetson, this Texas oil baron off the road, herds traffic like cattle. Okay. And he'll barbecue you to boot. Okay. Don't be deceived by his toothy grind. He's all business behind that reel. Okay. Well, strong words. Let's see if he stands up with this. And then I think it's about time to move to the 3rd game. So it's going to be a little bit lengthy, this video, but I think you're kind of used to this on this channel. Almost. So shifting went quite well, but I hit some of the holes or the bad road or whatever. This has slowed me down a bit. So now we have to take the battle to the road. So the tricky thing is I haven't spent attention to the distance. So I bet it is somewhere on the screen. But I actually have no time to look for it. So it's probably the counter in the top on the left hand side below the RPM. That's probably the distance, and I think if I see how quickly the fill decreases, we really have to get some fill somewhere. Oh, I have to stay on the road, otherwise we're not getting any faster. And now we have actually 2 challenges. We have to catch up. We have to pay attention to the fill and to the traffic and everything on this little screen. So this feels a little bit like a Game & Watch. And here we have some fill barrels. Oh, I hit the opponent during refill. That's really strange. So, and we really have to go slower. I think third gear is the maximum we can go. And then we have to pick up some of those cans or whatever we want to call this. And I think now it's about time to speed up the progress a little bit. Otherwise we have actually no chance to catch up. But there are about 30 miles distance between us and the opponent, and he hit the car, which gives us some time to make some progress here. 20 miles. So, as you can see, it's not a straightforward racing game like Red Racer, for example. You have to manage a couple of things. That was not good. In order to be fast, you have to watch a couple of things like the right gear and your gas level. So everything comes together to quite a challenge, and it is, well, call it ZR1 challenge. And this is not just a title, this is really the task you have to manage here. And yeah, playing this little screen is in addition to the whole thing at all. And I have to admit, I never played so long in this little screen. But yeah, we lost the stage. Fortunately, the game is not over yet, because we made it to the third leg. So we get back to leg 2, I think. Brought back one opponent. And we're back into leg... Oh, it's leg 4, Cincinnati to Detroit. Interesting. So maybe we have a chance to finish the race, but maybe we are not facing the final boss, so to say. Where was that map? I thought there was a map. Somewhere here in the menu. Yeah. We are going to Detroit. Cincinnati to Detroit. Yeah, so we finished 3 legs already. We are on the 4th leg. And, well, yeah. Looks like... Try to work your way up to racing against number 8, AJ Turbo, the king of the road. So, and maybe we are running out of legs at the end of the game, and we are not facing the final AJ Turbo opponent. So, as I said, there's a third thing I want to talk about, and therefore let's quit this at this point. And interestingly, for the third game, we have to switch back to the NTSC NES, and I will do this quite quickly. I'm back in a second. Stay tuned. And here I'm back again. And the third game is actually shipped in this kind of a transparent plastic box. And it comes with a couple of goodies inside, which we will check out quite quickly. And as you can see, it is the Nintendo World Championship 1990 cartridge. Obviously, it's a replica. It's not the original thing. I do not have that much amount of money to afford the original cartridges, which range at somewhere, I think, above $20,000, euros, something like this. Not to talk about the gold versions. But I was heavily inspired by the Netflix series called High Score. And I think it was the 3rd episode, which was all about the NES. And in this episode, the Nintendo World Championships was mentioned. and I was really keen on trying to kind of attend. So I mean, it's basically 30 years later and I cannot really attend, but I was really interested in how I'm going to perform in this World Championship game mode, so to say. And I was looking on the internet, and I found basically the game ROM, so you can Google it and then you can play this in your emulator. And I gave it a try at the emulator, and then I thought, well, let's see if there is a chance to get this ROM onto a real cartridge. And due to the special designs with the dip switches and different time settings and timer on the cartridge and so on, it is not as easy as I thought at the beginning. But I found at the oneup-retro.com page, shop, whatever you want to call this, that they offer repliques of this Nintendo World Championships. And by searching a little bit further, I found that there are several repliques of this cartridge already. Not really available, but they exist. But I found this one to be, let's say, the closest to the original one. So you can distinguish this quite easily because the position of the dip switch is different compared to the original cartridge. And some of the repliques have this more on the bottom of the cartridge or somewhere in the middle. And here we have it almost on the top, and this is quite close to the original cartridge. And the cool thing is they deliver you 3 different stickers. And you can design your own very own cartridge the way you want. And I went for this kind of shiny version. Where's the light? Here it is. Because what I have seen in the videos is that most of the original cartridges were a bit shiny, but there were a couple of with this matte non-glossy sticker. And here we have a sort of transparent version, which I don't like that much. And interestingly, they offer the gold version as well. I mean, it costs a little bit more, but I was not really interested in to get the gold cartridge. Don't like that color that much. Yes, and as I said, they deliver a couple of things. Here we have some sort of certificate, and this has been signed by Mario. So that's basically not really a certificate that you have an original cartridge. It's just hereby certifies that blah 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 has successfully competed in the 1990 Nintendo World Championships. So I have it anyway. Yeah, and there's a short kind of description how this cartridge is going to be used, and very interestingly is that we need 2 controllers, and this is basically the reason why I have connected the second controller here to my naked NES, because we have to start this game with the controller 2. The reason is quite simple. If you have seen some video footage of this Nintendo World Championships, then you have seen that a couple of people tried to, well, they played at the very same time, and they were started kind of at the very same time. So, and this has been done remotely by, well, the system, some people operating the system, and therefore they have used controller 2 to start them simultaneously. And this makes this cartridge sort of unplayable on the original Famicom, because the original Famicom has no start button on the second controller, because the second controller has a microphone. And yeah, that's the reason why I had to go for this NES. Fortunately, I have an NTSC NES. This game can be started on a PAL system, but the timing is way off. You can't really play it. So Super Mario Bros. Is kind of slow motion, and the other games are really not playable. So you really need an NTSC system, whether it's a rebuilt NES or, well, an NTSC NES. Anyway, let's give it a look. I will talk a little bit about this during the first gameplay, and then I will try to manage one gameplay where I stay a little bit more focused, but probably not going to make this big score tonight. I haven't played it that much yet, or for the last weeks or months. So as I said, most of the stuff I'm presenting today is really waiting in my shelf for pickup for some months. So let's bring this back to the middle of the screen. And yep, as I said, we have to start this with the start of the controller 2. And the first game is going to be Super Mario Bros. That's something where I'm not really good at. So, and as you can see, we have 99 lives. And I have to reconnect my controller. Clock is ticking. So, here we go. And as I said, we got 99 lives, and the objective is to get 50 coins. So it's not about points, it's not about levels, and it's just about 50 coins. And the interesting thing is that if we finish Mario on an odd level, we have easier opponents on Red Razor. And if we finish Mario on an even level, then we have the harder opponents at Red Razor. And the next thing is that if we finish Mario with a certain score, then we get a different tile set for Tetris at the end. And therefore, you really have to pay attention that you do not hit too many Goombas, I think they called. And that you stay within an odd level as best as possible. Oops. And what I have seen at the internet, the fastest way is simply to catch those coins here at the beginning and then simply die, because playing through the levels takes too much time. And my best case is about 1 minute 40 or something like this for the first stage here. So, and we got 10,200 points, which is within the range of this good tile sets. I got very good experience with 10,300 and 10,500 points. So let's have a look how 10,200 points plays. And what I've started a couple of months ago, but can't find videos right now. Oops. I recorded some of my Tetris gameplays with different Super Mario scores to see if it really makes a difference, because this NES called this is Nintendo Tetris has a couple of unique features generating those tile sets. So this random generator is not working like on other Tetris systems, and the game kinds of react to your gameplay as well. So if you fiddle too much with one piece, then this piece tends to come more often, and you can find this tip on some of the cheat pages for the NES Tetris as well. Ah, that was sad. So you may get a certain tile set, but you may influence this as well. So I'm not really sure if it is going to be the very same every time you hit the same score at Super Mario. But as I said, I will try to record this and try to check if it is really the case. And well, yep. What I really like about this game cartridge is that you have this fixed amount of time and you have to go through this through 3 different games, and it's not about reaching reaching a certain stage like finishing Red Racer or finishing Super Mario or something like this. It's really just about the challenge to get 50 coins to finish one stage of Red Racer and play Tetris, scoring as much Tetrises as possible. And at the end everything is well, combined. So you have different multipliers for Red Racer and Tetris. So it really makes sense to go to Tetris as fast as possible, make as much points as possible, because those points are multiplied by 25, and therefore anything else makes basically not that much of a change or of a difference for your scoring. Then making a lot of points at Tetris. And one approach is to fill the field as fast as possible, because the higher you are here in the field, the less time it is required to drop those pieces. So now we are getting a little bit an ugly build here. So let's see if we can fix this. And I have to admit I have actually no idea where we are in terms of time. So we may score at least one Tetris to get some points here before we run out of time completely. And I think at the original World Championship there was a big timer somewhere located to see how much time the players have left. And makes sort of sense is that you place some kind of a stopwatch, that was sort of a misplacement here, on your desk, so that you have at least a feeling how much time you have lost already, and if it makes sense to build a clean field of Tetris, or if it's just better to score whatever you can score and then there is time over. So, as I said, for Red Racer we get the points times 10, and actually it's not that much of a difference in Red Racer. I think the points tend to differ between about 1,000 points or something like this. And as we can see in Tetris, it's multiplied by 25, and here is where the money is made, so to say. And as I said, it is really recommendable to fill the field as fast as possible and then try to hit a couple of Tetrises and get into higher levels where we get more points for Tetrises as well. And that's basically the strategy, and I will try to make a second attempt, and then I'm not going to bother you any longer with my playing of Nintendo World Championship 1990. But, well, yeah, let's have another attempt. So, let's see how I'm going to perform. I have to admit Super Mario isn't my preferred game, so I'm going to struggle a little bit with this one. And there are a couple of places where I really have some issues with. Especially here, but well, I made it a little bit too short. And the goal is basically to get 50 coins, and therefore it is not really required to play this perfectly. Let's just, well, play it fast. And therefore it's quite easy to stay within the first level, because this will affect the cars at the Red Racer stage. So if you finish with an odd level on Super Mario, then you have the easy opponents. And if you finish on an even level, then you have the more trickier opponents. And this can really make a difference. I have to pay attention that we're not going to make too many points, otherwise we will get a bad piece pattern at Tetris, or tile set, so to say. So we just need 5 stars, and then we're good to go. So 10,500 points, it's quite ideal for the Tetris tile set, and I think time-wise the performance wasn't too bad. So let's hope for the best, fingers crossed for Red Racer. So I have actually no idea whether people who were attending at the Nintendo World Championships had a chance to really train this, because obviously in Red Racer we have a certain pattern as well. So first you can learn the track. That's simply the first track of Red Racer. So if you own the original game, then it's actually not so tricky to learn the track. And I haven't compared the pattern of the cars, so perhaps it's the very same on the first stage of Red Racer. But at least for the Nintendo World Championships cartridge, it is basically the very same, except you crash, then you really get out of sync, and it's going to be a little bit trickier to find your way through the traffic. And not pretending that I've learned all the cars right now. Let's just try to keep in mind when they tend to show up, because there are a couple of tricky stages, and usually if you cross the let's say the border to the third section of this first stage, then there's a very slow car in the middle of the lane. But since we crashed, it looks like we are on a complete different pattern right now. And if you go and hit them from behind, then you just slow down to 150 kilometers per hour, which is quite strange that it is kilometers, because it's a thing in US release, and I would expect miles per hour, but well, perhaps it's a European car, I have no idea. And yeah, so if you hit the cars from behind, it's not too bad, because you just slow down a little bit and then you can accelerate. But if you hit them from the side, then you get pushed over to the other side, and then going to be very tricky to avoid hitting something on the edge of the track, so like palm trees or something like this. And obviously here in Tetris we have to score as much Tetris as we are able to do so, and one, well, let's say technique would be to fill the board up to the top, so that you lose less time dropping the pieces. But I'm not going to do so. I'm quite fine by playing it the way it is right now, and I'm really happy if I go through this without any major mistakes. So unfortunately we got a couple of eye pieces right now where we don't need them, but there's another one. So I have to say that 10,500 points tile set feels quite right to me, so it's probably not too bad to go with this one. And so if you're going to play this more often, then it may make sense to remember how you did this in Super Mario. Now we have the first setup, the first tile that isn't matching somewhere, but I think we are running out of time anyway, more or less soon. So let's see if we can score at least one Tetris. Nope, time is over. Let's see. 690,500 points, so that's not really outstanding, but well, I think for a video presentation it is quite okayish. My personal best once reached and never again is 1.3 millions, but I may have to play this a little bit more often, so that I get used to at least the red razor car pattern, whatever, so that I get more smoothly through this. So I think we lost about 10 to 15 seconds at red razor due to the crash. And I bet that there's a much faster way to play the Super Mario. At least if I would be able to position Mario on the spot where I want to have him, then I think I can save a couple of seconds there as well. And then maybe, well, yeah, filling the board at Tetris a little bit more to save time for these dropping tiles, and then scoring a couple of Tetrises in a row will save some time as well, I think. And therefore there are a couple of tips and tricks to score here at this Nintendo World Championship. I think the best score in 1990 was about 3 point something millions or 4 point something millions, depending on the age group. I think up to 16 years it was 3.5, and the older group was 4.3 or something like this. I can't remember it exactly. And so way to go. So there's a lot of work to do to reach this level of Nintendo World Championship, but as I said, it's really interesting to throw in the cartridge, have a very quick game, just to finish the day or something like this, and then having this time limit, this restriction, so you're not going to sink in too much, and then you play a couple of games, and then, well, that's the fun about this. And especially after watching this Netflix series High Score, I was really hooked to this concept of having this World Championship, which took place in America, so it's not that worldish at all compared to the Classic Tetris World Championship, which is really taking place around the world. They just finished the 2020 championship just a week ago, something like this, and I have to say I was speechless. So I haven't expected the results. So you have your all-stars, you have your familiar faces, your familiar guys like Jonas and like a Green Tea, for example, and then you have the young stars like Joseph, who won 2 times already. And then you have a lot of very young player, but this year it was really outstanding. And if you're into Classic Tetris, if you're into NES Tetris, then I highly recommend go over to YouTube and search for CTWC, and then look for the latest videos. It's going to be very entertaining, and you can learn a lot from all those young guys playing Tetris nowadays. They have a very interesting stacking technique, and well, not to talk about hyper tapping at all. I mean, the speed is amazing. But anyway, it's about NTSC, Nintendo World Championship gaming on my desk, and basically that's all I have for this video tonight. So as usual, thank you very much for watching, and if you have any suggestions, comments, questions, whatever, feel free to use the comment section. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts, and then well, I wish you a very nice Christmas time, and we see us for the next episode. Thanks for watching, bye bye.